everyone. Chris said to me during lunch, he said, we should have done your talk before lunch. No judgment. So welcome everyone. As Chris said, I'm a holistic nutritionist, life coach, and I'm a healthy food activist, and I've been doing this work for about 14 years. I have 2 podcasts, Food Integrity Now, and a new podcast called Beyond Food Integrity, Thriving Like a Guru, which is beyond just what you eat. So you can check that out. I'm also the board president of Moms Across America, and I'm a homesteader. So I'm really excited to be here and share this information with you. You may know some of this information, but it'll be good to review. And my purpose, my life focus really is educating about food and toxins in our food supply. Toxins in our food supply can be the primary deterrent of our health. So it's really important what you put in your body. My intention is also to offer solutions so that you can create healthy bodies and healthy families and have a life where you can thrive. And isn't that what it's all about? If you want to take pictures of anything, go ahead, but I will be offering at the end of the talk a way that you can get my entire podcast in a PDF by signing up on my website. So it'll all be there if you don't want to take notes. I'm going to start out talking about what are GMOs, genetically modified organisms. And I know most of you know this word, but I bet some of your friends don't. So the process is it's done in a lab where they take a gene of a species or a virus and they inject it into a total different species. And these artificial changes are made to the DNA. And this process causes massive collateral damage to the DNA. There are 3 types of GMOs. The first type of GMO is engineered to be a pesticide. It's called Bt corn. They also do Bt cotton. And this is not the natural occurring Bacillus thuringiensis. This is engineered in a lab. Big difference. And this is a process where they take the gene of the carcass of a dead grain caterpillar and they engineer it right into the corn. And then a corn rootworm comes along and either eats part of the corn or a leaf of the corn, and it gets this Bt toxin in its gut. And what happens, it creates like a factory producing pesticide in the gut, and then the cornworm's gut explodes and it dies. So keep in mind, this is corn that you may be consuming, probably not this audience, but many people are. So if this is happening in this corn to the corn rootworm, what's happening in our stomach? The second type of GMO is the most common one. It accounts for about 80% of our food in our mainstream food supply. And that is called Roundup Ready crops. These types of GMOs are engineered to withstand the pesticides. And they're also engineered to withstand glyphosate, but also dicamba and 2,4-D. And 2,4-D is a component of Agent Orange. And it's, like I said, it's contaminated about 80% of our food supply. Roundup Ready crops include corn, soy, canola, sugar beets, alfalfa. And 90% of these crops in the US, except for alfalfa, are Roundup Ready. And so they spray the crops and the weeds die, but the crop doesn't die. Now, note that glyphosate, which I'm going to really get into in this talk, does not wash off, it does not dry off, does not cook off. It's systemic. It gets in every cell. And also, the weeds have gotten smart. When they spray with the glyphosate, the weeds die, But nature always finds a way. So now what has happened, it's creating super weeds. Weeds are actually getting bigger. They've found a way around it. The third type of GMO is engineered with desired traits. And to me, this is one of the scariest ones. An example is salmon, which grows faster, larger, and is designed to be sterile. The Arctic apple, which does not brown. Now keep in mind, it doesn't brown, but it still rots. So I had somebody tell me that they bought one and they smelled it, and it smelled rotten, but it was not brown. Another example of this would be the Simplot potatoes, which you might find in fast food restaurants. So your French fries in fast food restaurants could be Simplot potatoes. And again, they turned off the gene that made it brown. But that doesn't mean, it's genetically modified, so you're getting glyphosate in that product. But you're also getting rotten food. The biggest problem with this technology that we're learning is that when they engineer these traits, it's not an exact science. It's kind of a crapshoot. And it's not accurate, so it can cause off-target mutations. So let's say it misses something and it turns on a gene for cancer or turns off a gene that you would want. So it's really, there's so many unintended consequences with this, and it's also called CRISPR technology, and it's just not safe. Sometimes this is also referred to as GMOs 2.0. This is a picture of, a genetically engineered salmon, and you can see the genetically engineered one is 24 inches long, weighs 6.5 pounds, and there's a natural salmon next to it. So these are already on the market, and I might add, they're not labeled. I worked on the GMO labeling campaign many years ago with Pam Larry and others at Proposition 37 in California. And we did not get that proposition passed, but what we did is we really succeeded in raising awareness so that people now may know these words and know what to look for. But just recently, the Supreme Court, struck down that the biotech industry wanted to put a QR code so that you'd have to get your phone out to see if it was genetically engineered, which we thought was a disaster. And the court actually struck that down, but they didn't have any suggestions for them. So they kind of left it up to them, which is kind of crazy. So we'll see what happens there. All we wanted it to say is contains genetically engineered ingredients. I'm going to give you a little history of glyphosate. Glyphosate is like the best friend to GMOs. And we want to make glyphosate famous. And the reason we want to make it famous is because we want everybody to know about it. So help make us famous. Talk about it. The history of it was, in 1955, it was created by a chemist who was trying to see if glyphosate had any pharmaceutical properties, and he couldn't find any. So instead, they used it as a boiler pipe cleaner because it was effective in binding minerals. So it would bind minerals like copper, magnesium, zinc. And so glyphosate is a mineral chelator. So when it gets in your gut, it binds those minerals together so that they're unavailable. And we need those. Then in 1970, the Monsanto company discovered that glyphosate had herbicidal properties. So they patented it in 1971. And then 1976, they came out with a patented product, meaning that they would formulate it with other ingredients, surfactants, adjuvants, but glyphosate would be the active ingredient. It was relatively effective back then, but it was not widely used like it is today. So in 1996, the previous patent was expiring, and along came Roundup Ready crops. And I've already explained that process where they douse the corn, soy, canola, sugar beets, alfalfa, and it kills the weeds. And it was very effective. And the farmers really thought they had it made. The US government and the FDA was endorsing it, and it took off. Now today, glyphosate is applied to an average of 289 million acres annually, and it is now the most widely used herbicide in the world. In 2010, it was patented as an antibiotic. You can look up that patent online if you're interested. So again, if you're eating food that contains glyphosate, you're getting a daily low dose of antibiotic in your body, and we know what that does to our microbiome. And then in 2018, Bayer bought Monsanto, and now the same company that is making us sick can sell us the drugs, thus profiting from both ends. So glyphosate is not only sprayed on weeds, it's used as a desiccant. A desiccant is a drying agent, and much of the exposure that we're getting is from the desiccant. And it's sprayed on so many things. They call it a pre-harvest desiccation. And this is just a partial list of some of the crops that are sprayed with glyphosate. Wheat, oats, lentils, peas, non-GMO soybeans, corn, flax, rye, garbanzo beans, buckwheat, millet, canola, sugar beets, potatoes, sunflowers. Again, partial list. So many people have gluten intolerance, and there's been much research done on why that is. It's not just because the wheat has been hybridized and it's more glutinous. Many people and scientists believe that the gluten intolerance is actually glyphosate intolerance, because unless you are buying organic wheat, if you buy bread that is not organic, you are getting glyphosate. And so if you choose to eat wheat, make sure you're buying organic. The health issues are so many. I could do a 2-hour talk on the health issues. I'm just going to name a few. It's a known carcinogen. You've probably heard of the Monsanto lawsuits where the plaintiffs sued Monsanto. Many of them had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The first one was Lee Johnson versus Monsanto, and that was a great case because we got so much information on what Monsanto, how they cooked up their science and how they manipulated everything. And they knew the problem with glyphosate, and they hid it. But Lee Johnson prevailed. He's still really sick. He hasn't passed away. He was awarded $289 million in the verdict. That was reduced later on, and there's still more cases. Another health issue is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and we're seeing this on the rise even in children. Michelle Perot, who wrote a wonderful book called What's Making Our Children Sick, she's a pediatrician, and she sees that in her practice all the time, where young children are getting non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. There's kidney issues with it, endocrine disruptor. We're talking reproductive system here. It impairs growth of the placenta, decreases fetal body weight, can cause miscarriages, decrease sperm and testosterone in males. And we know what's happening in this country. Infertility is really on the rise. Gut issues for sure, leaky gut, dysbiosis, and imbalance of the good gut bacteria. And autism. Dr. Stephanie Seneff is an MIT scientist, and she's been studying this for years, the correlation between glyphosate and autism. Glyphosate has been found in our food, our bodies, the water, soil, breast milk. At Moms Across America, we tested breast milk, and it was in almost every sample. Wine and beer. We tested Napa Valley wine, and it was loaded with glyphosate. Even the organic that we tested had a small amount, and that was probably due to drift or water. School lunches, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, and of course in pet and animal food. At Moms Across America, we did a campaign, National School Lunch Testing, and we tested not only pesticides, we tested for pharmaceuticals, we tested for heavy metals, herbicide, and if you want to see the full results, you can go to Moms Across America, but 74% of the school samples contained at least one of the harmful pesticides, and we're talking at high levels. And 29 different types of pesticides were present in 74% of the school lunches. This is a really scary figure. 100% of the school lunches had heavy metals, and those levels were over 6,000 times higher than the EPA's maximum levels allowed in drinking water. And the reason I think that happened like that is because the agrochemicals use I've lost the word, the plastic chemicals. They use that in their process, and those chemicals contain lots of heavy metals. So, and the glyphosate in the school lunches can also be caused from people using contaminated manure, you know, on their garden and stuff. That's another source of it. Glyphosates in animal and pet foods. The introduction of GMOs brought lots of health issues, cancer among other things. There was a woman in La Cresta that I knew, her dog died at age 4 of cancer, and she had me over and she said, "What do you think I did wrong?" And I started investigating, and I said, "Does your gardener spray Roundup?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, in the backyard, our sidewalk, we don't want weeds by our sidewalk." Well, that's where they let their dogs out, and they spray, and the dogs get it on their paws, and then they lick their paws. And then I checked her dog food too, and she was like, "Oh my God." So she immediately, you know, got rid of the Roundup on her property, and she switched dog food. So responsible technology, Jeffrey Smith, he's kind of the pioneer in GMOs and stuff. He's been doing this for a long time, like 30 years. But on his website, if you want to go look at it, this is a report. I just grabbed this off there. And glyphosate is measured in parts per billion. And this is just a list of some of the dog food that they tested. Look at this Blue Buffalo, 284 parts per billion. That is so high. So it's really important that you know what you're feeding your dog. Glyphosate in chicken feed. This was a Twitter post. We can now confirm that Tractor Supply brand of chicken feed produces Pride 16% layer feed mini pellets contain twice the glyphosate of any other brand. And the next highest was the Purina Leina layer crumbles. And this was done by Natural News, and I think that their full report is out now, so you can look at that. So it's really important what you feed your animals. So now I want to talk, I think I missed a slide here. Next. Yeah, this is a study that was done. We all know about the egg shortages, right? And they found that the glyphosate really affected the egg shortage because it what's it say in that last sentence? That we found a negative association between feed glyphosate residue levels and the hatchability when adjusted to breeder age. I mean, that's basically, it means they weren't getting as many eggs. So that could be part of the problem too. Next. Now I want to talk about something that I think is really important to talk about, and that's all the fake meats that are out there. The Impossible Foods, for example, Impossible Burgers. They also make chicken, pork, sausage, meatballs. And I'm seeing them everywhere. You see it in grocery stores, Burger King, White Castle, Starbucks, and in many restaurants. And they're selling these. They're marketing these like they are going to save the environment. and it's just an absolute lie. They're made with GMO Roundup Ready soy, and they're not better for the environment. And this heme, which is the fake blood that, if you've ever seen one of those, it has fake blood. They make that from roots of the soy plant, genetically engineered to make yeast using synthetic biology. And this has never before been consumed by humans, and it's never been tested. Another great organization, GMO Free USA, did a survey of people who ate Impossible burgers, and they could put their results on there. So many people have been getting sick, having allergies. This is not good food. And Bill Gates is one of the major players in these fake meats, so not a very trustworthy guy in my world. And this is just a resource for cats and dogs. Again, I put the responsible technology because I have a lot of information on there. And then we have a natural pet food store you may know about. It's on Winchester Road. I have that there. A friend of mine who lives in La Cresta, she only feeds her horses organic hay. So a lot of people have been asking about that. And this gentleman, John Morse, his phone number's up there. He sells organic hay. Many of you know about Modesto Mills organic feed. I'm not a feed expert, so these are just a few things that I came up with. Next, I want to talk about labeling and what it all really means, because it's confusing, and I think that's by design. It can be deceptive, it can be used as a marketing tool, or it can be used to assist you to know what you're getting if you can understand what some of those labels mean. So I'm going to go over some of these. Natural means nothing. It's a total marketing term. No GMOs, when it just says no GMOs, who's checking? It's used as a marketing tool, and also no GMOs does not mean that it doesn't contain glyphosate. Now, non-GMO project verified, they are checking. It's a good certification, but it isn't organic and can contain glyphosate. I've had clients say, well, I bought this product, it's non-GMO project verified, but if it's not organic, you really don't know what you're getting. So you could be getting glyphosate. Gluten-free, we're gonna test gluten-free products at Moms Across America because most of those products are so bad. They're filled with GMOs and glyphosate, added sugar. Cage-free means the hens were allowed to wander freely, but their wandering can be limited to a hen house. The hens may still live in those overcrowded situations. Free range, this label requires that the hen is allowed outside, but for how long? And I got a lot of this information. I interviewed the Cornucopia Institute recently, and they're really fighting for our rights with these labelings. And so I highly recommend you go to that website too. Pastured has no legal definition or third-party verification, but it's usually used by small farmers who raise their chickens on natural pasture. Is it third-party certified? No. And it does not mean that they are not fed. It does not mean that they're fed organic feed. Grass-fed, do you see that ever on a package of meat, but it doesn't say 100% grass-fed or grass-fed and finished? Total marketing term. Every cow is grass-fed at some point. So you want to look for 100% grass-fed, 100% grass-fed and finished. I care about how animals are raised, and I thought this certification meant more than it does. So you see that certified humanely raised. This is a third-party group, and they're not really concerned about pesticides, and they have minimal benchmark for animal welfare. They're just skating by. Now this certification, I was told by Cornucopia, is really good. Animal welfare approved. It's a higher benchmark, and they also have on-farm inspection. Glyphosate residue-free is one of my favorite labels. Excellent. It costs a lot of money to get that certification, and they check often. And then their certified organic foods must be grown and produced without the use of toxic and persistent pesticide, artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, synthetic growth hormones, antibiotic, GMOs, irradiation, and more. Now, do I believe that USDA organic is 100% perfect? No, but it's one of our best bets. So I get really excited. I'm a real foodie, and if I go to the store and I buy something that has USDA organic on it, non-GMO project verified, and glyphosate residue free, I'm going to buy that product because I want to support the companies that are doing the right thing. They weren't required to put that glyphosate residue free, and so I want to support a company who goes that extra mile to make sure there's no glyphosate in their products. So this picture, the one on the right here, is from our farm. Pretty happy looking chickens there. And this is the other. So which one would you prefer? This is the Cornucopia Institute. They do scorecards, and it's pretty cool. You can go there. They not only do scorecards on eggs. I just grabbed the 5-star and then the 1-star. There's more if you go to the website. But they also do dairy and a few other things. Poultry. I think they do like 6 or 7 different things. So I highly recommend you go to their scorecard if you're unsure about a product. So what can we do? Well, we eat organic and we buy organic pet and livestock food. That's kind of a no-brainer. We grow our own food if we can, even if you have to start by doing it on your apartment balcony. You learn how to regenerate your soil so that you can get nutrient-dense food. Because as we know, our food is only as nutrient-dense as our soil. Eat fermented foods daily. If you can tolerate them. Not everybody can eat fermented food, but they can really help your microbiome. This is a really good tip. Add acetobacters to your diet. Stephanie Seneff, that scientist I was telling you about, she did some studies. There are acetobacters in apple cider vinegar, kombucha, and sauerkraut juice, and they can actually degrade the glyphosate in your body. So, if you have to eat out, come home and drink some of that. Eat veggies that are high in sulfur. That's another problem with glyphosate. I could do a whole talk on that. Glyphosate depletes the sulfur in our body, and we need that sulfur. So eat sulfur-type vegetables, onions, garlic, sweet shallot. It helps deplete or glyphosate depletes the sulfur, so you want to get that back. So real solutions, like I said, grow your own food, create a new neighborhood food exchange, neighborhoodfoodnetwork.com. We started that on Moms Across America, and it's all over the country. Teresa Lozano and I started one in up on the plateau where I live, Plateau Neighborhood Food Network. And when we started it, it just went great gangbusters, and we have 68 people on that, and we're all sharing. And it's just a great way to create a parallel food system where, let's say we have a lot of grapefruit and we want avocados, so we put that, got access, and then we trade. And it also helps you to get to know your neighbors and create community, so it's a wonderful thing to do. And the Neighborhood Food Exchange, neighborhoodfoodnetwork.com, they've got all the resources like forms, how to do it, and they're all free. You can download everything. So check that out. Shop farmers market and get to know your farmers. Join a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. Cook at home and engage your children. Make it fun. If you're regularly eating out, you're getting GMOs and glyphosate, unless you go to an all-organic restaurant, which we don't have a whole lot of those around here. Do your own research. Be the squeaky wheel. Call companies and demand change. I do that all the time. I'm curious about something. I call them and I ask, why aren't you organic? Like Pamela's. Come on, go organic. I'll buy your products then. Ask questions in restaurants. In particular, the first question to ask is, what type of oil do you cook in? 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, It's going to be canola. And so if you're ordering something, say, can you cook it in butter instead? And educate them. That's how we get things to change. Talk to your school boards if you have children in school. My guess is most of the people here don't let their kids eat the school lunches, but there are plenty who do. And share that article. These are future generations with the developing immune systems, and they're just getting this toxic load. And one of the most important things that I think that we can do is, because many of you may have known this, but now it's fresh in your mind, each one teach one. And that's how we change things. So tell other people. Don't preach, just let them know. And that's how we change the food system. These are some of my recommended readings. These are great books. I've interviewed every one of these authors, and the full interviews are on my site if you're not interested in getting the books, but it'll make you really knowledgeable, and they're very eye-opening. What's Making Our Children Sick, I mentioned earlier, and that is just such a great book. She's coming out with a new book of how to get our children well, and I can't wait until that one comes out. These are just some resources, Food Integrity Now, Moms Across America, Glyphosate Facts. Glyphosate Facts is great. During the first Lee Johnson trial, a woman named Kelly Ryerson, she's also on our board at Moms Across America, she went to every single day of that trial, and she's known as Glyphosate Girl. And she's very creative and funny, and she made that trial kind of funny, if you can imagine that. But she's one of the experts, and she's got all the facts on there. But all of these organizations, if you go up and sign up, to get an email from them, you can become very educated pretty quickly with all this information. And there's my information, and it's been a privilege to speak with you all today. And